This is the Texas Pete Scoreboard Show. Texas Pete, drama for your mouth. Bob Fasella, Hans Heiser, great to have you with us. In about 2 hours from now, the College Football Playoff Committee will announce the 4 teams. We are going to talk about that. We'll break it down. Over the next 30 to 45 minutes, we'll talk about all of yesterday's action. We want to hear from you. Hit us up on Facebook Live, but we got to start it off, Hans, with the SEC championship game yesterday. Georgia gets a measure of revenge, and it couldn't have happened at a better time.
No, and it started disappointing for the Dogs. Auburn came out firing on all cylinders. Early on, they got the pass interference call on their opening drive. It looked like it was going to be a 3-and-out to start the game for Georgia, but those ugly penalties reared their head again for the Georgia Bulldogs. And Auburn, hey, they drive down the field. Great play call on the goal line. Stidham makes a great throw. Touchdown, 7-0 Auburn, and they seize the momentum. They get the ball back. They come down the field. They're about to go up 14-0, and then Bellamy makes what's probably the play of the year for Georgia, not only at that moment, but just to kind of seize the momentum. And it was a different football game after that. Chubb was running with authority. The offensive line was blocking guys way down the field. The coaches on the sidelines were fired up. And don't forget, I mean, this was a 13-7 game in the fourth quarter. So the score isn't really, indicative of how close this game was until the very end. But Georgia got it done, and they will be going to the college football playoff.
We talked about this beforehand. Bellamy's strip sack was the defining moment in last night's game. Jacob Eason getting hurt was the defining moment in Georgia's season. I don't know how else to say. Yeah, Kirby Smart talked about it before the game. He said it's all about physicality. He talked about it at halftime, about the physicality, and even talked about it after the game. And Georgia was exceptionally physical last night, and I think that made all the difference. We're going to have much more in the game coming up. A reminder, at 12:30 right here in SEC country, it's the path to the playoffs. We'll know the teams and the matchups at that point in time, and we'll break it all down. What?
I was letting you, get the show set up, man. That's all.
All right, before we talk about the SEC championship game, I want to talk briefly about the other championship games last night. Ohio State gets it done against Wisconsin, put up a nice fight, but the Buckeyes win it 27-21. Start the controversy. Clemson Tigers just roll over the Hurricanes 38-3. It wasn't even a game. Kelly Bryant was amazing. And then the other championship game, Big 12, Oklahoma beats TCU for the second time this year, jumps out big and never looks back. 41-17 the final count.
Third consecutive Big 12 title for Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield probably going to be the Heisman Trophy. It's looking like a Georgia-Oklahoma 2-3 matchup out in Pasadena. We'll find out a little bit more in a couple hours. But I think on the larger scale of things, pretty disappointing Saturday from a competitive game standpoint. I think Ohio State was the closest game, 6 points. Everything else was well in hand, with the exception of the Georgia-Auburn game, of course, until the fourth quarter. But I think, obviously we know where things are with the top 3 teams. The great debate is Ohio State, Alabama. Everybody's got an opinion, including Mark, including Michael.
Hit us up. We want to hear from you. I mean, that is the big story this morning. Who's going to be that 4th team? Got to talk about the rumors that we're hearing. Reportedly, Gus Malzahn has been offered the Arkansas job after the game last night. He was really non-committal. He said, yeah, I want to be the Auburn coach, blah, blah, blah. But he was never definitive about, I am going to be here next year. Next question. He would not say that.
But none of these guys ever do. They never say that because they lose their leverage. I think right now he's signed through 2020. He signed a contract extension last year. He's making about $4.75 million a year. And I think, in my opinion, he's got a little bit of leverage with the university. You take a look at the contract Jimbo just signed. Obviously, Arkansas, they're willing to empty out their checking account to pay him to get him to come home. So a little bit of leverage for Arkansas as well. So, listen, at the end of the day, I would not be surprised if Gus Malzahn ends up going to the University of Arkansas as their next head football coach. I really would not be surprised. And then the question is, what does Auburn do? Don't be surprised if they reach out to the snake himself, one Bobby Petrino. That's right. That's a hot take, baby. That is a hot take.
I kind of like that.
You know what he would do with Stidham? It'd be scary.
Stidham was pretty darn good this year with Gus and Gus's offense. I'll tell you what, I don't know where you go with this. Gus would be a great choice for Arkansas, but he's got everything set up at Auburn.
Sure.
I just don't see him walking away at this point in time.
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Who knows what's going on there with the boosters and what kind of friction is there, what kind of relationship he has with the new athletic director. I expect a decision probably in the next couple days. Maybe not Tennessee. I don't think we'll ever find out who. Maybe Tennessee won't have a coach next year.
Love the comments. Keep them coming. Ben Boatwright, go Dogs. Junior Dawson, got to be Bama. Helen Benson, Bama. Keith Smith, nope, Bama should not be in. Not a championship team. Lost the West. Did not qualify for SEC.
Is that where we want to take the discussion right now?
No.
I'm just reading comments.
Okay. Comment.
Mark goes, God, no, please, not now. Not now.
We're going to talk about that. What the committee does, we're going to find out at 12 o'clock, and we're going to talk about that and after we talk about the SEC championship game. All right. Want to take you back to the Texas Pete scoreboard. Texas Pete, spice up your tailgate with Texas Pete. 28-7, the final. 3 weeks ago on the Plains, Auburn chewed up and spit out Georgia 40-17. Complete domination, held the Dogs to 46 yards rushing. Jake Fromm was just 13 of 28. Tigers ran for 237, including a $167 by Kerryon Johnson. At that time, no reason to believe Auburn wouldn't do it again if they met in the SEC championship game. Well, guess what? I mean, the roles were reversed yesterday. It really was reversed, especially in the second half where Georgia just took control of that game.
Before we just real quick want to say the job that Gus Malzahn did to just be in this situation. To rally the team from after that LSU loss to beat Georgia, to beat Alabama, it was an unbelievable story for them. But yeah, I mean, this came down to just a couple plays. The play by Bellamy, the fumble early on, and then Kerryon Johnson's fumble to start the fourth quarter. It's a 1-point game. And if you watch the replay, he stumbles just a little bit, and they're able to go in there and knock that ball free. And at that point, Georgia just took that momentum, went in, punched it in for 7, got the 2-point conversion, and the rest was history. But the adjustments, Kirby Smart after the game at the podium, they asked him about what was different between the first time and the second time. And if you remember that opening drive, I think there was the first or second play, Auburn tried to run that wide receiver screen. And Georgia just ate it up, man. And about 2 or 3 plays later, they tried it again, and Georgia ate it up. And Kirby said after the game, he said, look, they wore us out with that play the first time we played. We just never seen it before. It's not that great of a play. We just never seen it before. We weren't prepared for it, and that's on me. That's on our staff. Assume responsibility for it. But what did he do? He got them ready for it, didn't he? I mean, they weren't having any of that wide receiver screen last night.
No, they weren't. Auburn had 488 yards in that first game, just 259 last night. One of the keys as I look at that game of the Georgia defense, you're looking at Roquan Smith, another amazing game, but the fact that Georgia said, you know what, we're going to pressure Stidham. They had 5 and even 6 guys pretty much on a consistent basis applying pressure, and Stidham was never able to just sit back there and relax and take his time and look to his second and third receivers.
Right, and they were getting after him, but a lot of those pressures were secondary based. They were covering guys up downfield, and he just did not have the time. Let's go back to the first fumble, the Bellamy strip sack. He was going to dump it off over the middle, and Roquan Smith, who to me is the most valuable player in football outside of Baker Mayfield. I mean, guy's incredible. He drops back and covers up what was going to be the drop-off, enabling Bellamy to come in and make the play. You can't say enough about Roquan Smith and what he's done. Forget the leadership intangibles. We know what he means to that, but on the field, this guy's a machine. Of course, he takes home the honor, SEC Most Valuable Player for the game. Just a phenomenal effort by him and everybody on that side of the ball. And give Kirby Smart some credit from taking this team after that disappointing loss to Auburn and how they responded against Kentucky, Georgia Tech, and now Auburn. He got everybody dialed in. It's a tremendous job by him and his staff.
Great leadership by Roquan Smith, leading by example. 13 tackles, 2 for a loss, gets the sack, recovers 2 fumbles. Any doubt in your mind, and last night was a microcosm of his entire season, that he is the Butkus Award winner, and he's the top linebacker?
I don't know who you could pick over.
I
mean, anybody that watches the game, watches tape, has watched this guy since week one. He's been the best player on that side of the ball for Georgia. And what an unbelievable story. NFL mock drafts, we talked about it a little bit before.
Yeah, he's a junior.
He's a junior,
He's
right.
going, though, right?
He's going. I mean, I've seen anywhere from top 5, and you were saying that you saw some stuff down at the bottom. It doesn't matter. His leadership intangibles, his work ethic, the things off the field are going to carry him at the next level. Somebody's going to get a very special player. Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm, incomplete. His first pass is incomplete. He goes, 10 in a row? The guy played unbelievable. And, going back to that Eason injury play where they were really struggling to move the ball against Missouri, all of a sudden Fromm comes in, and it was a whole different attitude from the offensive line to the playmakers. The whole team's attitude changed. And my question is, and we can get into this later if you want, if you're Justin Fields, I get it. Yeah, you want to come to Georgia, but Jake Fromm's going to be a 4-year starter at Georgia unless he gets hurt. I mean, the kid is the real deal, man.
All right, since you're talking about Jake Fromm, let's just keep it right there. In the first game, he's 13 of 28. Yesterday, as you said, he's 10 of 11 in the first half. He ends up 16 of 22, 183, 2 touchdowns. He also had that great 17-yard run for a first down in the second half. He really how is this kid a true freshman? Are you kidding me?
Right. I mean, opportunities. And here's the other thing you got to think about. He's going to have, I think, 15 practices between now and the semifinal. So that's just more experience, more rep, more rapport, opportunity to build with his teammates. So we still haven't even scratched the surface of what this guy's potential is.
All right, let's talk about Jarrett Stidham, because in that first game, he was exceptional. You talked about the wide receiver screens. He delivers passes on time. He really has a great sense of timing and running this offense with all the shifting that Gus Malzahn does and all the different formations. Does an amazing job, and he was tremendous in that first game. Last night, he completes 10 of his first 12, and then it all changes. Georgia, the pressure starts to get to him. He doesn't have time to set. He's 6 of 20 from after that point, and boy, he was. I don't want to say if non-factor is the right phrase, but he was not a factor in that second half. He couldn't get anything going.
Yeah, well, what happened to him, Bob, last night is the same thing that happened to Fromm in the first matchup of these two teams. Auburn couldn't run the ball.
Yeah,
whether it was Kerryon Johnson's injury or whatever, Georgia's defensive play, Auburn could not run the football. And when that happens, obviously you change your game plan. The only plays they made in the running game were with Stidham, extending plays. They weren't designed runs. It was just his athleticism, able to move the chains. I guess he did that maybe 3 or 4 times in the game. Look, he's going to be fine. He's going to get better. I think last night, Kerryon Johnson, why he'll never admit it, why Gus Malzahn, I think he was very hurt. Their lack of depth at that position was exposed. But look, the reason he was hurt is because you're giving him the ball 40 times a game in the Southeastern Conference. So, look, it is what it is, but I think Jarrett Stidham's going to be fine. I think he's going to be a dark horse, early Heisman Trophy candidate next year for Auburn.
All right, let's keep it here. Talk about the running backs. Kerryon Johnson, 13 carries, 44 yards. In the first game, he ran for $167. He also caught a couple of passes for 66 yards and a touchdown. How much of last night or yesterday had to do with the Georgia defense making adjustments as well as him being banged up?
We'll never know.
Hard to know.
Yeah, we'll
Combination
never.
Of both,
yeah, we'll
sure.
never know. And you read his body language, you read his facial, reactions throughout the night. Early on, he just looked like, I don't want to say a deer in headlights, like the moment got the best out of him. It was just like, as a competitor, I'm going to be out here because I need to be here for my team as the leader. But man, I'm not where I need to be. You know what I mean? I'm going to need a lot of help to get through this game. At least that's what I read through him. And credit to the kid. I mean, guy had an outstanding year, and I think it's a shame if he's not a finalist for the Heisman Trophy. Which
well,
he doesn't look
announcers
like.
talk last night. He didn't have the stiff arm going, and on the fumble, he wasn't carrying the football very securely. I think it had to do with the injury as well. The shoulder looked weak, and Georgia was able to take advantage of that at the end of the day. And like you said, I don't know if he's going to be a finalist in New York for the Heisman. I doubt he is, but man, oh man, he definitely deserves it. He meant that much to Auburn. Georgia running backs, conversely,
wow.
I mean, they were. Nick Chubb was tremendous, even though the yardage total, I think it ended up being 77. By the way, he's the second leading rusher in SEC history, behind only
I missed it. I was reading
Herschel
the comments.
Walker.
Oh, well, of course, Herschel Walker.
Well,
I don't know that anybody.
You got to pay attention every now and
then.
then.
I'm reading the comments.
I know you're reading the comments.
I'm trying to interact.
You know, if you can't
with
do
these
two
people.
jobs, if you can't do two things as one, you shouldn't
I know
be
this
here.
is the SEC show, but I got people on here talking about LSU football, and I'm just trying to figure out how that's relevant to our conversation this morning.
By the way, we're going to hit you up on Facebook. Want all of your comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this Georgia team and this game before we talk about some of the Alabama and Ohio State stuff. But Georgia running game last night.
In the passing game as well. Sony Michel, you know who's going to be involved in the passing game. Couple dump-offs to Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb making plays in the passing game last night. So, I thought Chaney called a brilliant game. Michel gets banged up a little bit. Of course, Swift has the big play there at the end. He might not be in the game at that time if Michel doesn't get hurt. Good news if you're Georgia, it's a left knee injury. It doesn't look like it's anything bad. You got 3 to 4 weeks to get ready for the big game. I expect all hands on deck.
Yeah, I agree with exactly what you said. Georgia opening up the passing game just a little bit earlier than the last time around really helped these running backs open up some lanes. And the DeAndre Swift 64-yard touchdown run was just a thing of beauty. If you're a Georgia fan, I mean, that had to be the most sensational moment in that game last night, and some would argue he's the most talented running back on this team.
Well, Mark's over there, but listen, Chubb, go back to the run against Kentucky a couple weeks ago where he goes 55 yards down the sideline. I think you got a glimpse of that Nick Chubb pre-injury, of what he was capable of. Last night, after the Bellamy fumble, right? Georgia was struggling offensively. They needed to respond. They give Chubb the ball on a 1st and 10. He goes for about 15, 16 yards, dump trucking people. I mean, initiating contact, running with authority. And it's amazing how college football is all about momentum, isn't it, Bob? I mean, you don't see it in the pros, but you see the strip sack by Bellamy. Georgia gets the ball. Chubb makes that run, runs people over, the crowd's back in the game, and there really was no turning back from that point. From
Steve Jackson says, why isn't Chubb in the
Jackson's
Heisman?
listening
No,
to our show?
it might be. He says, why isn't Chubb in the discussion for the Heisman?
Well, he's splitting carries with guys. He's splitting.
If he wasn't, right, if he was the sole back, I think he would be. He'd have
Right.
1,600 yards or more, and he would be in that discussion.
If you gave him the ball 45 times a game like Kerryon Johnson, he would have had a hurt shoulder, and then, who knows?
All right. Got to give Kirby Smart and his staff a A+ for last night's game plan, both offensively and defensively.
Man, we do game balls every week, which is my favorite part of the week. And I'm a little disappointed we're not giving one out today, but I'm going to give one anyway. Kirby Smart. Yeah, Seth Emerson wrote a great piece this morning. I read it talking about Kirby Smart's days at Alabama, everybody coming after him to be a head coach, and time again, for whatever reason, not working out, saying no, in the back of his mind saying, God, I want that Georgia job. If Georgia ever opens up, I'm the guy. And the second it opened up, he was the guy. And what he's done in such a short amount of time, being a former player, there's something to be said for that. Having ties to the university, playing with that pride. And I think the what they've established this year, in particular with the senior leadership, you've got ambassadors of the program now, right? You've got guys like Roquan Smith, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, who are going to be ambassadors for the University of Georgia that have set the example on and off the field for these young commitments to come and be a part of something. And it's all because of Kirby Smart and his staff and the culture that they've built around that program in less than 2 years. It's phenomenal, and it's exciting if you're a Georgia fan.
Kirby Smart's 2-year record at Georgia, now 20-6. And of all the Nick Saban disciples who've gone on to be head coaches, I know it's early, but you got to make the case that Kirby may be the guy who actually carries the torch. Right,
he might be. And what a story it's going to be when they play Alabama for the national championship in Atlanta. Oh, wow, did I say that? What a story that's going to be. I mean, this stuff doesn't write itself.
Right. Let's go back to the...
Did I blow my cover on who's going to get the 4 seat? Did I do that? I'm sorry.
I don't think anyone... your cover is blown from the start. I mean, both of our covers are kind of blown because we've seen the SEC play this year. We've seen Alabama play. We've seen Ohio State play. And the eyeball test... I'm sorry, you got to give it to Alabama. All right, want to go to some comments on the Facebook Live chat. Beth McHugh, total adjustments to success. Go Dogs. Brandon Pope, update on Sony. don't have an update
yet. Yeah, left knee, they said, as far as I understand, they felt around the knee. You can tell immediately if it's an ACL, some kind of big tear. That's not the issue. They're going to take a look at it with an MRI over the weekend. Who knows?
Mike Heinen says, love my Dawgs. I went to school with Herschel Walker. The last time we won a national championship, sure would be nice to bring it on and bring it home once again. Go Dawgs. And I love the moment before the game yesterday.
Oh, with Herschel
and
Bo?
Had Herschel and Bo on the field. Come on, is that not sensational?
The guy I was sitting next to, he goes, how come Terrell Davis isn't a part of the Georgia Pro? How come he's not on the field? I said, do you really want to be Terrell Davis out there standing next to Bo Jackson and Herschel Walker? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like Terrell is a great player and all, but I mean, you got SEC lore. Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame, but I mean, it doesn't get any better than, I mean, those guys walk on water.
Well, they're icons. I mean, they were icons, and Terrell Davis was a heck of a football player, an NFL Hall of Famer, but he's not an icon like those guys. Brandon Pope says, thanks for the update. Wayne Horton, Tennessee can be cheerleaders for whoever wins the national championship. Ha ha. Jonathan Craig, UGA loses to Oklahoma. We're going to get to that in a little bit. It's going to be a heck of a matchup, though.
But here's the thing. If you're Georgia, to be in the conversation, to win the SEC for the first time in 12 years, people were crying last night. I mean, people have been waiting for this for so long, and now you have a month. You have the whole holiday season leading up to what it looks like a bowl berth in Pasadena. By the way, for bleeps and giggles last night, cheapest flight you can get out of Atlanta to L.A., $800. They're already price gouging, so maybe rent a car, drive cross country. It's only 36 hours.
By the way, Tom Wright says, shame on Auburn, ruined a good athlete. Johnson showed a lot of heart. Was he misused by Gus Malzahn down the stretch?
If you're going to say he's misused, then you got to say he was misused all season long.
Was he?
I mean, give that guy 40 carries a game, 35 carries a game. In the SEC, everybody was saying, you know, eventually this is going to catch up. Eventually this is going to catch up with them, but he's not going to say anything. He's not going to throw his staff under the bus. His staff's not going to throw the kid under the bus. Kerryon Johnson's the leader of this team all season long. Auburn had a tremendous run. By the way, there were 12 pundits who made their bold predictions, and every single one of them has Auburn playing UCF in the Peach Bowl.
Hey, my good friend Brian Bennington says, go Dawgs. Yeah, Brian, I got you. I mean, amazing night if you're a Georgia Bulldog. This is the Texas Pete Scoreboard Show. Spice up your tailgate with Texas Pete. The final college football playoff rankings get released at 12. Join us on SEC Country at 12:30 as we run down the path to the playoffs. Clemson, a virtual lock, I think, to be number one. Yeah. They'll opt to play in the Sugar Bowl. It's going to be their choice. They're not going to take the sugar over the rose. No Deshaun Watson, but this team looked every bit as good as last year's team in dominating Miami 38-3 last night, and basically dominating the entire season except the game against Syracuse where Kelly Bryant got hurt.
Right. Dominated Auburn as well. You know,
yes.
What can you say
Are
about
they number
Dabo?
one in your mind?
Oh, no doubt.
No doubt.
No doubt. Yeah, and Dabo, yeah, everybody, you know, Saban obviously. This is the third consecutive year they're going to be in the playoff, right? They're the odds-on favorite to win it. If Alabama can get in this thing, you're looking at the rubber match between Clemson and Alabama. Dabo Swinney, what he's done as far as reaching these kids, he's new school. He's the leader of the new school. That's what I'm going to start calling Dabo. He really is. He reaches these kids and he gets them to compete. You got so many guys that can recruit but can't coach. You got so many guys that can coach but can't recruit. What he does is he gets these guys in there. He makes sure the boosters give him the money to build the facilities, and then he delegates. He doesn't try to be the smartest guy in the room. Oh, hey, go run the offense. Go run the defense. I'll recruit the kids. I'll make sure they have what they need in order to win. Dabo Swinney's the leader of the new school. Saban's old school. He's the leader of the new school.
And the question becomes, when Nick Saban retires, is he going to be the next Alabama coach?
Oh, no, he can't. He can't.
Don't follow a legend.
What he has built at Clemson is what do you compare it to? I mean, he came from – Clemson was nowhere.
All right, we can't get into this discussion, but in a word, does he ever become the Alabama head coach?
No.
All right, the final rankings will likely have Oklahoma number 2, although the order of number 2 and number 3, whether it's Oklahoma or Georgia, does not matter one bit. They're both likely going to head out to the Rose Bowl. I guess it matters on which team wears the home jersey.
Does it matter? Did they not give them a choice? So the 2 seed would be the home team?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. And they get the choice on which jersey they want to wear.
I'll let you pay attention to the uniforms.
Yes, I'll be in charge of the nitty-gritty details. Beat up on TCU again yesterday. Baker Mayfield's phenomenal. 15 of 23, 243, 4 touchdowns. This team is going to be 2 or 3, no doubt about it, right?
Yeah, they'll be in there. Their offense, playing in that conference, it's hard to really gauge exactly how they are. They going into Ohio State, putting I think 31 points was their lowest point total of the season on the road. That's what people are going to look like to try to gauge what they're going to play like against an SEC defense. We're going to find out. But I know one thing: Georgia's offense, that running attack, and the offensive line. They're going to have their way with that Oklahoma defense. I mean, the question is, can Oklahoma score on the Georgia defense, assuming that they play? Can they keep up with it? Because I think Georgia's going to be able to just run the ball 4, 5, 6, 7 yards a chunk, and Oklahoma's not going to be able to do anything about it.
Well, that's the big question. Can Oklahoma's defense stop Georgia, or at least contain them? And I will say this, Oklahoma's defense has been vulnerable all season long, but they did play one of their best games yesterday, holding a decent TCU offense to 17 points. That's the big question to me. That's why I'm so excited about this game. How does that play out? How does that game play out? Is it a high-scoring game? Right. Is it a low-scoring game? Does Georgia keep it low-scoring, and Oklahoma is going to have to try to eke out a victory? Or the Dawgs, are they able to outscore?
If you're Georgia and you can get 4 or 5 yards a chunk on carries, you just eat the clock.
Oh, absolutely.
You just eat the clock. Keep it away from Baker Mayfield. Keep him on the sidelines. Don't turn the ball over. Play a clean game, and it's there for the taking. And the good news, I hate to keep jumping ahead, but we have to have this conversation. It all comes down to me, big picture, who Clemson plays in that first opening round, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Alabama. Because if you're Oklahoma, Georgia, right, the winner of that game, if it's Clemson, Alabama, you're going to get a beat-up team in the national championship game. That is going to be a slobber-knocker affair. There are going to be bodies laying on the field. So you're going to get a beat-up football team.
But if it's Ohio State, 9 or 10 games between semifinals and final?
Right, but still, there's something to be said for that. I just don't get that vibe when you watch Ohio State play. I think Clemson would handle Ohio State fairly easily. Alabama rested back to full strength. I don't know that that would be the case.
All right, Georgia's going to be 2 or 3, going to play Oklahoma. If you're Georgia, you want to run the football, you want to control the clock, you want to be physical. But what concerns you about this game if you're Georgia? What's your biggest concern heading into this game?
Oh, just the unknown about this Baker Mayfield and his playmakers on offense. I mean, they just seem like they can do whatever they want. 3rd and 15, they got to play for that. They're kind of like the Atlanta Falcons in the NFL.
Good call.
I mean, they really are. I mean, offensively, whether it's, using their running backs in the passing game, whether it's, trick plays, Baker Mayfield extending plays, he's really fun to watch. And it's just the unknown. And, Mark's got a great point. If you're Georgia, you got to clean up these penalties, man. I mean, this
5 personal foul penalties
out of control.
Yesterday.
By the way, some of them were just horrendous.
Some of them were ridiculous.
Yeah.
The hit out of bounds, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Hit out of bounds. I thought the roughing the passer was just brutal on Georgia. Yes. Never mind. We won't get into all that. But, yeah, Georgia's got to clean some of this up. And at this point, I don't know that they can. You are who you are at this point of the season. Georgia is 99th in the country in penalty yards. I looked it up this morning because I want to know where they stood. Look, it's going to cost them a game if they don't clean it up. I mean, it really could.
I'm just excited to see this Oklahoma offense against this Georgia defense.
We're assuming that happens, right? I mean,
it's going to happen. Come on.
Okay.
Want to make a little side bet? You're a betting man? You want to make a little side?
Right.
I'll give you 10 to 1 odds if that's what you want.
I think you're right. But we're speculating on something that's not written in stone. And whenever you do that in college football, it ends up, costing you.
This committee has nowhere to go with this.
How about this committee? I mean, how do you make this decision? How do you make this decision? You can make an argument for either team.
All right, we're going to get into that in just a second.
We've been teasing the heck out of it, Bob. We've been going now for 45 minutes. Eventually, we're going to have to talk about it.
All right, let's talk about right now. If Ohio State is number 4.
Okay.
Ohio State would get Clemson in the Sugar Bowl.
Right.
Ohio State is a team that has some flaws. Last year, I know it's a different year, A lot of the same cast for Ohio State. Last year, lost to Clemson 31-0
right,
in the semis. Do you see this game being any different if these two get together this time around? It certainly wasn't a pretty game last night over Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think human nature is eventually going to make the decision here for the committee. And what I can't get past, and I'll make a case for either one, what I can't get past is how bad they looked in the Iowa loss, which is by far the worst loss of either team. It's not even debatable. Right, the loss by 31 points against Iowa. You give up 55 points to an Iowa team. We all know how bad that was. But the other thing I can't get past with Ohio State is you just hit on it, is what happened to them last year. Whether fair or unfair, different team just completely get goose-egged in the college football semifinals, and they don't want that. They want to see a competitive game. And I'll take it a step even further, go back the year before with what happened to Michigan State. Same conference, same result, 0 points. So without bringing up Alabama even into the discussion, when you look at Ohio State, human nature, just looking at what's happened to that conference and Ohio State as well in this situation before, it has to play a part of this decision.
So if you're a Clemson fan, you're the Clemson coaching staff, what concerns you, if anything, about a matchup with Ohio State? Obviously, anything can happen when you...
for sure.
What concerns you if you're Clemson?
Oh, well, T.J. Barrett, when he's on, man, J.T. Barrett, he's one of the most prolific playmakers in college football. And you saw last night how tough and gritty this guy is. By the way, watching Ohio State on offense last night, I had to close my eyes. I mean, this is a guy who just had his knee scoped 4 days ago. Well, right, but just watching him play, and it's 3rd and 1, and you know they're going to run a play for him, and you're going, oh, God, please, nothing happened to him.
QB power.
He's tough as nails, man. So long as you've got him, and that freshman running back is more than legit. More than legit. So offensively, they are going to be able to put up points even against that Clemson defense. But I don't know. I just think Clemson's much better football
I have
team.
my doubts. This Clemson defense.
What's the line on that game if they play?
I have the line if Alabama played Ohio State. We'll get to that in a second. I don't know what I think the line's got to be more than a touchdown. 7.5.
7.5. That's what I would have it. Yeah, I think 7.5. And then on the other side of the coin, if Alabama were to play Clemson, I don't know what the line would be.
Well, let's get into that game. Alabama loses a heck of a national championship game to Clemson last year. Different cast. There's no Deshaun Watson to pull you out of the fire. Kelly Bryant has been very capable. Does Alabama give Clemson a game?
Oh, absolutely. And don't forget, this is the rubber match. These teams have played 2 years in a row.
True.
This is the rubber match. People want this. It gets back to human nature. And you could say all the pundits out there say, well, there's no way they're going to put 2 teams from the same conference in and leave out 2 conference champions with 2 losses, talking about USC and Ohio State. Well, if you watch football, I think I don't want to say anybody, but to me, Alabama's the better team. You throw the injuries in the mix, they're going to be back for this game in the national semifinals. The question is, do you punish Alabama for playing their schedule and losing on the road against Auburn? Let me ask you a question. Does the Auburn loss hurt Alabama in the SEC championship? Had they won?
Yes, in perception.
Right.
Yes, it absolutely. Okay, let's get to this right now. Make the case that Alabama should be the 4th team.
Okay, Alabama, they handled an LSU team fairly easily, right? An LSU team that beat Auburn.
Who's LSU? It's the 9-3 team.
I think LSU's a top 10 team in the country. I really
not
do.
According to the polls.
The heck with the polls. This is back to the eye test.
Well, this is what everyone's going to go by. The committee, the committee says LSU is what? I think 17.
Right.
Alabama only beat 2 teams ranked in the top 25. Actually, it's 3 if you count Fresno State, but Fresno State, is after their loss yesterday, is likely going to fall out.
If you're leaning on Fresno State, you're in trouble. So
make the case for Alabama.
I just think Alabama, you got Jalen Hurts coming back. He's a quarterback who played in this game. Their defense has been banged up all season long. They went into golly, I mean, they got dropped off at Normandy, for God's sakes, going into Auburn. You saw what they did to Georgia. Auburn's
nice analogy. I like that.
I mean, that was a heck of an environment to expect to go in and compete. Look, I don't know. I hate to be the one to make this decision, but if I'm picking between Alabama and Ohio State, I just can't get past that loss to Iowa. There is no way. And Nick Saban said this last night.
You're making the case for Alabama right now.
There is no way Alabama loses to 33 points to the Chicago Bears. let alone the Iowa Hawkeyes. I mean, it just would not happen.
All right, here's the case for Alabama. Just one loss. Like you said, on the road against an Auburn team who at the time was the best team in college football. Best wins, LSU, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, maybe Fresno State. And they beat what turned out to be a 6-6 Florida State team in the opener. But at the time, Seminoles were ranked third in the country.
Right.
Francois was the quarterback. This was going to be a good Florida State team. Not having Francois for the rest of the season just changed the entire dynamic of this team. But even before he got hurt, Alabama was dominating that football game.
Right.
And I think that's got to count for something. The committee always takes injuries into account, or so they say. I think that has to account for something. When you beat Florida State, beat up on Florida State, which was a top 5 team at the time, and you talk about injuries counting, at least in the committee's eyes, supposedly, Alabama has all of their linebackers back for the playoff. You know, this is an Alabama team that will be better than the team that lost to Auburn. This is a stronger team. This is a healthy team. The committee says it takes the top 4 teams, the best 4 teams.
Right.
They say conference championships matter. Ohio State has one. But they say they take the best 4 teams. I don't know how, with the eyeball test, you don't include Alabama in that group over Ohio State.
I tell you what, if you're Clemson, you really hoping Ohio State gets in there, because that's asking an awful lot to beat Alabama for the 2nd consecutive year. An angry Alabama team that's expected to be back to almost full health. Give them a little extra time to prepare. They're going to be angry. And here's the thing: if it's Clemson, Alabama in the national semifinal, the Sugar Bowl at 8:30 on New Year's Day, that's going to be a bloodbath, one for the ages. And what a tale of 2 football games if you got Oklahoma and Georgia to start you off out there in Pasadena, and then these other 2. You can make a case that'd be the best semifinal ever. I'm not trying to, leave Ohio State out of this. If I'm making the decision, and if I've got to vote, and I had to sleep on it. I wasn't ready to make this decision last night, Bob. I was not ready to make this decision. I go with Alabama.
By the way, not that it matters, but if you care what Vegas thinks.
I do care what Vegas thinks.
Vegas has the Tide. If they were to play Ohio State, if you match these 2 teams neutral field, Alabama 5.5-point favorite. And if you matched up the SEC in order with the Big Ten, SEC teams would be favored in 10 of the 14 games.
Oh, I believe that. I mean, just back to what we were talking about. Ohio State last year, goose egg. Michigan State the game before. Right.
Tennessee in its game with Illinois was actually a pick'em.
Tennessee is close enough. It's a great point. Tennessee is close enough where they could kind of move into the Big Ten. They would fit in perfect with Rutgers and Maryland. It'd be new rivalries.
All right.
Sorry, Tennessee.
Can we get a couple of comments before we go, Mark? A couple of comments on this. We said we'd do it, so we got to do it. Paul Barnhill. Whoever wins their conference championship, no matter the record, should play for the national championship, period. Committee says conference championships matter.
You know what? That's fine.
Should they?
You know what? So we can finally put it into this. I would not be upset if Ohio State gets in and gets completely boat raced. Like 45-0 to Clemson. So we can finally put an end to this nonsense. Please.
All right. I told you, I think it should be Alabama. Eyeball test. Everything tells me.
I see it
but
in your
at the
eyes.
end of the day, I think this committee is going to say, you know what? These teams are too close. We don't want to put 2 teams from one conference in. We don't want 4 Southern/Southeast teams in the championship. And they're going to give Ohio State the nod. Plus, as Mark, our producer, points out, national TV exposure. They want Ohio State. More markets in the Midwest. They want Ohio State in.
Boy, there's a lot of upset Alabama fans for a change. And they kind of deserve that because they've been riding high for a while.
They don't deserve to get screwed, whether you're an Alabama fan or not.
How about this? If they're the odd team out and they go down to the Orange Bowl and play Miami, what do you think they do to Miami? Beat them by 35, 40 points?
Them.
I mean, really.
Absolutely.
Mark Richt has got to be saying, please, God, let Alabama get into the college football playoff. Please let them get in there because we don't want that.
Love all the comments. Milena Bonfield, announcement at 11 today. It's actually 12 Eastern time. She must be in Central time. Jess Cook, absolutely Alabama gets in. Reginald Craig, let them play against each other. Wouldn't that be fun? All right, we're going to have a play-in game. If nothing else, regardless of which team gets in and which is left out, this is going to spark the debate even further that we need to have at least 6 teams in the playoff.
You just had it. You just had the playoff this past week.
But it didn't solve the problem we have now.
You're right. If you had a 16 playoff, which
5 conference champs,
you would have USC, you would have Ohio State, you would have Alabama, the top 2 seeds, Oklahoma and Clemson would have byes. And by the way things shake out, you would have a USC-Georgia matchup, and ironically, you would have an Alabama-Ohio State matchup.
Funny, I'm getting all the comments. You don't include Alabama because they're not a conference champ. Well, go back to last year in the committee. Penn State, remember, actually won the Big Ten, but they chose Ohio State, which didn't even play in the game.
Right.
And if the committee turns around and does anything different this year, they're complete hypocrites.
You know, I think what we should do, and it'd be a great opportunity to raise some money for some needy people around the holidays. No, is just settle it on pay-per-view, have a cage match with Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. I think everybody and their mother would buy that. Urban would fake a heart attack. It's only one way to settle this.
A heart attack.
Oh my goodness. Hey, it's been fun. So who gets it? You say Ohio State?
It should be Alabama. I think it's going to be Ohio State.
This is our last show, isn't it?
Yeah, who gets it? You think it's Alabama.
Okay, and go further. I mean, who's in the final? Who's your national champion?
It's Clemson.
Clemson wins it all.
It's Clemson.
It's going to be
Georgia and Clemson. It's Clemson.
Boy, Atlanta would be lit.
Oh, man.
I think Georgia takes
anyway.
the national championship. I think it's either going to be Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson. Either way, you got crazy storylines with Dabo and, of course, Kirby with Alabama. And the game being played in Atlanta itself, you got to think it'd be a pro-Georgia crowd. But they got to take care of business first against Oklahoma in what will be a tale of 2 different styles of football, man.
Love it. This is what
it's been a lot of fun.
Hey, we love having you with us all season long. Thanks a lot. This is our last show. Hopefully we'll reconvene and do it again at some point in time. But for Hans Heiser, I'm Bob Fasella. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments.
Thanks to Texas Pete.
Thank you,
Texas Pete.
I will be going home making some scrambled eggs, and there's nothing better than scrambled eggs with a little Texas Pete on it. I'm just saying. So we'll see you until next time. Remember, at 12:30 Eastern Time today, Path to the Playoffs, SEC Live. We have got you covered. Want to talk about it? Tune in. Till then,
see you.
We'll see you.